getting quiet. Glad to see you guys here with the World Series going on. Obviously, you know it's 8-0. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here. So we'll go ahead and call this board meeting to order. Steve, will you lead us in the flag salute, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adoption of the agenda. Second by Laurel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to number 3, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We have a number of guests with us this evening. As our school year progresses, we reach the natural end of some of the activities and sporting events, and there are other culminating activities that we're happy to bring before you and introduce some of the successful participants, and tonight is no different. I'd like to first start with Mr. Doug Whistler, who is a teacher and coach at Carson Middle School, and he's had a very successful season. I'd like Mr. Whistler to come forward and introduce his 7th grade girls Ta-Neva champion team to you.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you for having us here again. And this was a very special team. Not only did we win the championship, these girls worked hard all year and went undefeated.
Wow.
So,
Mr. Whistler, before you go, if there's any parents, you guys can come up here so you can get the front of their faces instead of the back of their heads, too.
would it be all right if they just came up and introduced themselves?
That's good.
Come on, you guys just go ahead and come on up.
Lexi can go first.
Just one at a time,
Okay.
come on up. Introduce yourself and
And your nickname.
tell who your parents are.
Okay. This is tall. My name is Alexis Philippi. I'm number 15, and my mom's Amber LaFollette, and my dad's Jesse LaFollette. Nickname.
Quickly, girls.
My name is Gabrielle Frank, and I'm number 21, and my parents are Cindy Frank and Jack Frank.
My name is Lily Boza. I'm number 22, and my mom is Brandy Boza, and my dad's Mike Boza.
My name is Olivia Frank. I'm number 20, and my parents are Cindy Frank and Jack Frank.
My name is Bella Cardonaway. I'm number 41, and my parents are Jared Cardonaway and Colleen Cardonaway.
My name is Veronica Burson. I'm number 24, and my mom's name is Leslie Burson, and my dad is Chad Burson.
I'm Cherish Crayon. I'm 30. I'm number 30, and my mom is Tabitha Crayon.
My name is Ashley Wood. I'm number 34. My grandparents are Sharon Wood and Gary Wood.
My name is Lauren Wynn, and my number is 3, and my parents are Paula Wynn and Dawn Wynn.
My name is Brooke Robinson. And I'm number 2, and my parents are Amy Robinson and Scott Robinson.
Mr. Whistler, they all said their names, and now you're disappearing. Thank you so much, girls. Congratulations. We are so proud of you. And Mr. Whistler, you've done this program forever, as far as I know, and we appreciate your hard work and dedication, too. Thank you, guys.
Madam President, members of the board, Carrying forward, this is an evening of royalty, and it's my pleasure to introduce our leadership class sponsor, Ann Britt, who will introduce the Homecoming King and Queen for 2014.
Madam President and School Board, thank you for having us here tonight. We had a very eventful, fun homecoming week last week. We're moving on, but I'd like to introduce to you Abby Dudley and Fred Christensen, who are our homecoming candidates that for this year.
Go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us what you're going to do after high school.
I'm Abby Dudley, and I'm hopefully planning after high school to go to BYU and Provo, and not quite sure what I want to do yet, but I'm excited. So.
I'm Fred Christensen, and after I graduate, I don't know what college I want to go to yet, but I want to major in mechanical engineering.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, and congratulations. It was a good game, too. Comment by Ms.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment because my family knows Abby as a babysitter and a swim instructor, and you have a 5-man fan club at my house, and I think the kindergartner is the president.
Madam President, members of the board, next I would like to introduce Mr. Rod Butler. He is our girls golf coach, and he will be introducing Taylor Krupp.
Evening, Madam President, members. This is Taylor Krupp. I'd like to share a little information about her golf season with you. Taylor finished in the top 10 of every event this year as a senior. She qualified first for zone, or regionals as we call them here. One of 5 individual players, in addition to team players that made it. We qualified as a team 4 out of those 5 positions as individuals because we didn't make it as a team. Taylor then went on to qualify for state, which she finished 33rd out of 55 players. Couple of added points. She exemplifies what a student athlete is, carrying a 3.9 GPA. So far, so good?
Thank you.
All right.
Sounds good.
And then one last story about state. She exemplifies exactly what we hope for student athletes or just students from Carson High School. Taylor was having a rough time second round. Yeah. And the volunteers continued to come up to us saying what a professional lady she was, how she conducted herself around the golf course, when others could have become very upset with their playing. She remained very professional out there, very courteous and very polite to everybody that came up to her. We're very proud of her.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. And also with the help of our new coach, Mr. Butler. He's been a great asset to our team, and we are so stoked to have him. So.
Well, we're glad that you didn't get your golf talent from your father, Taylor.
Hey, he's not too bad. I've learned it from him, so yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Butler, for stepping up to the plate to coach golf again. We're glad to see you back.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Madam President, members of the board, next I would like to introduce Sheila Story, who is no stranger to this board. And Mrs. Story has some information regarding an activity in our district, and I'd like to turn time over to her at this time.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. I'm here on behalf of Aaron Bean. Aaron Bean cannot be here today because Carson High is having a volleyball league game. Hopefully we're winning. I believe it's against Minogue. Anyway, she asked me to come and present something to you guys that Carson High achieved. It's called Let's Active Move Let's Move Active Schools, and it's a national recognition. It says, "Let's Move Active Schools in proud recognition for Carson High School for creating an active school environment that promotes physical activity and physical education." The faculty, staff at Carson High, along with the student body, and especially with Erin Bean, she put all the information together, sent it in, and we received a National Recognition Award. And they sent us this banner, which is much taller than I am. But you wanted me to show it to you guys. This right? Yeah, here we go. See it? Anyway, this banner's gonna be hung someplace in Carson High School. I'm not quite sure where. And then she's gonna also frame this certificate that we received. So, any questions?
Nope, thank you very much.
Great.
We're so proud of all the work you guys do there.
Oh, thank you.
It's exciting.
Thank you.
I have a few other items, Madam President, to let you know of. This is always a great opportunity to talk about an award of this type, but we were notified recently that our Carson High School boys tennis team was named winner of the State Academic Award that had a team GPA of 3.74. So those academic state championships, as you know, are posted on their little plaque just inside the north entrance of Carson High School as you go into the gymnasium. And it's great to always win an academic state championship, and we've been the recipient of many. So pleased again to carry on that tradition. I know if Jake were here, he'd probably take a few bows. Okay, next, our elementary parent-teacher conferences will be held and have been held beginning October 27th, and they'll continue through the 30th of October. And classes at our elementary schools dismiss at 12:40 to accommodate those meetings. I also like to announce that there will be no school on Friday, October the 31st for celebration of Nevada Day. And we look forward to a lot of great activities this weekend, and we need to hope for good weather on those two days. I also like to remind everyone that daylight savings time ends early Sunday morning on November the 2nd, so remember to set your clock back 1 hour. And then looking forward into November, on the 10th, which is a Monday, there will be no school as part of a school holiday associated with Veterans Day, which is that Tuesday, November the 11th. And as you recall, we have no regularly scheduled school board meeting on the 11th. That was determined earlier in the year. And so this body will be dark. So really our next regularly scheduled school board meeting will occur on November the 25th, and that will start at 7 p.m. just like usual. So no school board meeting on November the 11th coming. I'd also like to announce that on the 19th of November, our community PLC meeting, that will be our next quarterly community PLC meeting, will begin at 6 p.m. We'd like to invite anybody who's interested, and that will be held at the Carson High School Library. And finally, the open enrollment for our staff members, anyone who has insurance through the school district, will go through the online open enrollment process, and that begins November the 3rd, which is this coming Monday, and will end on the 19th. There will be additional information for each of our schools, and there will be staff members available to assist any of our staff members in going through this process. So that is the end of my report, and thank you for the time to share this information.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Going on to Pioneer, Kaylee.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. Pioneer is offering a tutoring program available 2 to 3, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. All students are invited to attend and receive additional support. Pioneer is continuing to promote a food drive to help the community through FISH and the Ronwood organization during the months of October and November. And we will be accepting donations of non-perishable food in the office. To further promote the food drive, the Pioneer Student Leadership Group will be participating in the Nevada Day Parade on November 1st. On Wednesday, Pioneer will have a costume day and unveil our new mascot to the student body, which is the Black Panther. and I will be being that. On Thursday, the student leadership group will spend the day at Project Discovery and develop team building skills. The construction program still has doghouses that are for sale to the public. For additional information, contact Mr. Johnson at the school. Leadership will be putting together a gift basket for one of our fellow classmates and leadership member. Just keep him in prayers and anything helps. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Kaylee, and we will wish the best to the Ramirez family. Allison.
Okay. I was going to start out by saying thank you, Madam President and members of the board, for being here and having us. I'm going to say that homecoming went very well. We had great school participation in dress-up days, and our nighttime events, lip sync and bonfire, were successful. Everyone enjoyed having our parade before the game, and our dance went phenomenally. Sorry, that's not a word, but we made over $6,000 on our dance. Wow. And these are just some upcoming events in our school. On Wednesday night, we're going to have a boys soccer match against Douglas at the high school at 7 o'clock. Thursday, the 30th, we're going to have a volleyball varsity match against Douglas at our school at 6. And there's also going to be a dance in Senator Square hosted by Link Crew from 7 to 9 for our freshman class. And on Friday the 31st, there's no school, but there is cross-country regionals at Rancho San Rafael in Reno. And hopefully we're going to do well. On Monday night, on the 3rd of November, there's going to be UNR Parent Night in the library. Tuesday the 4th, there's going to be volleyball varsity regionals at CHS at 6 o'clock, and we don't know who our opponent is yet. Thursday the 6th of November, there's going to be a girls soccer game, varsity regionals against Douglas at CHS at 4, and Friday the 7th, there is a varsity football game against Douglas at CHS at 7 o'clock. And Saturday, November 8th, there is volleyball varsity regionals against North Valley High against North Valley, and there's going to be cross-country varsity state to be announced, and if they qualify, and there's also going to be the SATs in the upper cafeteria. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for joining us. Candace. Steve.
Fremont School had a great turnout of 350 parents and students for their PTA spaghetti dinner and math technology night. Northern Nevada Children's Museum and Carson City Library staff helped, and the school wished to thank them for the help. As Mr. Stokes represented, it is parent conferences this week. Tomorrow, the whole day, though, is dedicated to the history and heritage of Nevada for the NV 150 celebration. Fremont will be showing a video of Home Means Nevada and having birthday cake during their special times. Any of us on the board are invited to drop by and join the celebration. Thursday, they'll join the rest of the state of Nevada in singing the state song at 10 a.m. November 5th, it'll be the first ESL family night. Dinner will be provided, and then we'll have a parent meeting about how our ELL students are doing, how parents can help them achieve even more success. Students will also get assistance with homework and technology that evening. The annual Veterans Day program will be 10 o'clock on Friday, November 7th. And then PTA Family Movie Night is Friday, November 14th. And then Lunch Bunch and Book Fair is November 17th. And then the PTA-sponsored Dinner and Family Science Night in November 18th. It will be led by Sierra Nevada Journeys, and there'll be many science projects on display. So Fremont has a busy schedule before the holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Laurel.
Yes, the Early Childhood Center is approaching their full-day SFA training on November 4th, and then they're going to hold another Parent University on November 3rd. The focus of the November Parent University is Snuggle Up and Read With Me, which is a program designed to help families develop nightly reading routines and practices. And then, best of all, this Thursday, they're getting ready to celebrate Halloween, and so the preschoolers will be trick-or-treating in the Student Support Building at 10:30 and at 2:15. If any board members want to stop by and help hand out candy, they'd welcome you. For Fritch Elementary School, I wanted to apologize for missing the library's Digitorium grand opening on Thursday night. I was attending the 4th grade music program, so priorities. But I also wanted to commend Fritch has a brand new music teacher this year, Mrs. Nicole Melsheimer, and she put on one of the best elementary school music programs I've seen, so it was great. Fritch is also participating in the canned food drive for Fritch, and that's going on. And they too will be joining in a school-wide sing-along with the statewide sing-along for Home Means Nevada this Thursday at 10. And November 3rd, next Monday, is the PTA meeting at 6. And Fritch's Veterans Day Assembly is November 6th at 2:30. And they'd like to invite all veterans to attend the assembly. They usually do a really great assembly there. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Ron?
Yes, I'd like to mention just a little bit about the ribbon cutting in the library, the Digitorium. Mr. Stokes was present, Stacy. But for all of the board members and all of you, it's another good example of what a community partnership entails. What this Digitorium is it's all set up for the youth of Carson City. It's set up with kids that can check out laptops, iPads. They've got green screens. They've got a soundproof booth. But it's a learning environment that just creates a situation for kids to be innovative and creative. And they do this by combining academic achievement with the power of imagination and evolving technology. And as part of this, we've got 700 of our freshmen going through creating PSAs using this technology and this learning environment. And it's something very special. I just went there just to observe the kids in action, and it's way beyond me. But I'm going, how nice is this? It's just one more example of how this community is providing something special for our kids. That's it, Madam President.
Just to add on to that, it's a great place for kids to be able to go till 6 or 7 o'clock at night too, to get homework done or just hang out. It looked like a little diner. It was pretty cozy. We had a good time. Nothing about Nevada Association of School Boards. We'll have more to talk about because our conference will be held the weekend before our next meeting. And that's all I have. Any association reports? Don't even see any associations. They must be watching the World Series too. Now is time for public comment. This is the time that the public can comment on anything that is not on the agenda. You have up to 3 minutes to talk. Please state your name for the record. And we have Mr. David Carter to start us off.
David W. Carter, and not talking about Common Core tonight. What I am talking about is, you might have seen some flyers out there for the free community barbecue that's going to be at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at 411 North Solomon. That's just south of the high school. And it's going to be good food. There's going to be live entertainment. There's going to be a quilt show, and there are over 150 quilts, I understand, that have already been submitted that are going to be put out for view. Some of these are several generations old. And the area that I'm most familiar with is family history. I work with the Family History Center at the church. We are going to be helping family folks sign up for FamilySearch.org. This is a church, LDS Church sponsored program, but it is available to anybody, non-member or member, who wants to learn about their genealogy and family history. And family history actually is a little bit more than just genealogy, because it includes pictures of family members, stories. You may be able to find out records of when they immigrated to the United States, and all sorts of information. So we're trying to help folks get registered with Family Search, that once they're registered, they can do it from any computer, so it's something you can work on at home. And family history I found very interesting in the time that I've worked on it, and I've gotten a lot of information from family members who are Southern Baptist who had quite a bit of information that we hadn't been able to find. So you find folks of all faiths and areas that are interested in this program, and I hope that we be able to see you all there, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Any other public comment? Just before we go on, I meant to say this earlier, but we do want to send out our sympathies to the Livermore family. Pete was a great access to this community and the kids here, and he's going to truly be missed. And I just saw him a week before, so I did want to say that. I'm sorry I didn't mention that in comments, though. Moving on to number 7, discussion and possible action of 2014 refunding bond resolution, authorizing the superintendent to arrange the sale of refunding bonds series 2006-2007 for possible actions. Mr. Fueling and Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, trustees. AJ Fueling for the record. Last week, you authorized us to take the first steps in refunding some bonds from 2006-2007 to realize some savings within our debt service fund. Tonight, come back to you asking you to authorize a second step, which is a bond resolution, authorizing us to move forward with actually selling the bonds. So with some more detail as to what that entails and what that looks like, we have Marty Johnson, our bond consultant from J&A here. And Marty, would you like to?
Thanks. For the record, Marty Johnson with J&A. This is the resolution that spells out all the terms and conditions of the bonds. It's great reading if you wanted to read it. I've read I've read way more of these than I care to in my lifetime. But basically what this resolution does is it delegates to the superintendent and the CFO of the district the ability to accept bids. Our current plan is to sell the bonds November 19th. That is the day that we would lock in the interest rate. As part of the process, we'll be talking to Moody's Investors Service to update the rating that they have on the school district. That conversation will take place October 30th, and so at your meeting on the 25th, we'll be able to report back as to what the rating was. But we do anticipate maintaining the AA2 rating that the district has, which I might add is, I believe, the highest rating of any school district in the state. So that is something to be proud of. Again, interest rates have actually risen a little bit in the last 2 weeks, but we still anticipate saving approximately $500,000 through this refunding, and that's money that will accrue into the debt service fund and can be used to support future bonds or can be used for pay-as-you-go projects. So with that, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Or
any questions? Candace?
Because these bonds are general obligation bonds, is it ever possible to specify that you're pledging instead of just saying all taxes that go to the school district, would it ever be possible to limit that even more and say only the taxes that are designated for debt service? Because we have obviously 2 different property taxes for the school district, but I didn't know if that was, it's a little bit scary to say you have all school district property taxes, and I was just wondering if that was ever an option.
Theoretically it is. However, if we limit it even more than we've already limited under Nevada state law, the bonds would no longer be a general obligation. General obligation does imply full faith and credit. The district does have the ability, if it ever needs it, and again, we do our best to plan and project things in the future, but if it ever had to raise that 43-cent tax rate to pay bonds, it can. That is the promise that we make to bondholders. So the general fund serving as a additional source of money to repay the bonds really is meant to be more of a temporary thing if that shortfall occurs during a fiscal year. Theoretically, the next year you'd levy a property tax that you need to repay the bonds, and the general fund wouldn't have to make any of those payments. But we do need to have the general fund on the hook to get that full faith and credit general obligation pledge.
And then just a question on the resolution. Just a question on the first page of the actual resolution. You said that you thought the bonds would actually be on the market November 19th. So they would be dated November 19th. But then at the beginning of the principal amount, it talks about the interest date. And I thought that the interest would start on June 1st and December 1st of each year commencing on June 1st. Shouldn't that be 2015, not 2014?
And I don't happen to have a copy of the resolution, but yes, it should.
It would start next year, right?
Yes, so we should probably, when we get to the point of making a motion, and I'm not an attorney, I'm the numbers guy. What page is that on?
Page 14, which is the first page of the resolution. It says...
okay, that's in the form of the bond, so actually I will have them make that change.
Thank
But let me just check the bond details section and make sure that we have June 1, 2015. Actually, the sale date, the November 19th date, I'm sorry, I'm talking as I'm looking here, is when we lock in the rate. We will actually close the bonds. Yeah, on page 4, they do have the correct payment date of June 1st, 2015 in section 12 bond details.
Right, but on page 14...
Right, it does need to be changed, but that you don't need to worry about having as part of the motion, because that's just an example of what the bond will look like. But the interest will start accruing as of December 9th or whatever day it is that we close, and get paid June 1st and December 1st. But good catch, thank you.
Anyone else? Ron?
Just on page 2, in that second paragraph where it says the bonds are to be sold at a price equal to the principal amount thereof plus accrued interest to the date of delivery of the bonds plus a premium or less a discount not exceeding 9% of the principal amount thereof. Can you give me an example of where do a savings, but in the case of this issue of bonds or the refunding, 9% premium or discount?
Yes, but all of that ends up getting reflected in the rate. For example, right now, most buyers, and I honestly don't understand it. It has to do with duration as you manage portfolios. To me, yield is yield. You invest money to make X percent. But what they want is a 5% coupon. And so if you put a 5% interest rate on a bond, but then sell it to yield 2%, you end up with a dollar price, depending on when it matures, of $1.06, $1.08, $1.15, for example. And so what happens is the purchaser of the bonds passes a portion of that premium onto the district. And so we receive that in exchange for paying that higher rate. It's almost as though when you do a home mortgage, you can pay a point to get a lower rate. We're basically on the other side of that transaction. We're getting the point in this case. But all of that gets factored into the net effective rate. But yes, I've seen deals in the last year that have had an 8% premium bid on them. But again, at the end of the day, that all gets factored in the rate because we downsize the transaction to utilize that money in the deal so that it all works out.
One additional question, and that's on page 4. Why did we choose or select Zion First National Bank as actually the
escrow bank and the paying agent? Basically, I asked the district if they wanted to bid those services out. That is something we can do. And I was directed to bid that out. So we got bids from U.S. Bank and, U.S. Bank and Zion's Bank. They have been the two banks that have been providing the best pricing as we've been doing this over the last year. And Zion's Bank had the lowest price. But we have found that the other banks that do this type of work in the state have become much more expensive. And so that was why I suggested to him that we bid it out.
Just one additional question, again, formalities. On page 9, it says, such initially delivered bond shall be registered in the name of, it's in quotes, CD and Co. Company. Yeah, what is that?
Man, you've got some great questions tonight, Mr. Swarzik. CD & Co. is this big warehouse back, actually I think they're now in New Jersey. They used to be in New York City. They are now in New Jersey, and basically it is the depository trust company, which is jointly owned by all of the investment banks in the country. And, you know, in the old days, we'd do bonds, and you bought a bond, you got a piece of paper, you got the coupons, you used your scissors and clipped them and sent them in. Everything is now done electronically. And so that is the company that processes those payments. We send, the district, we send money to, in this case, Zions. Zions then sends it to Depository Trust Company. Depository Trust Company breaks it up and gives it to Charles Schwab and Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and Ed Jones and all of those people. Then they break it up to give it to the investors. And CD & Co. is just the name that they use for facilitating that.
Thank you. Can't say we don't do our homework on this board, can you?
Hey, I tell you. I'm going to send Jennifer Stern next time.
Any other questions? See, this is what happens when we put you at the front of the agenda. We can nail you. We're not as tired. Thank you,
That's quite all right.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
This is for possible action.
Okay.
I'm going to do it after the motion.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees adopt the 2014 refunding bond sale resolution as submitted, authorizing the superintendent to arrange for the sale of refunding bonds, Series 2006 and Series 2007.
Second.
Second by Candace. Any discussion on the motion? Any public comment on the motion? Seeing no movement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. You are set to go, Mr. Fueling. Moving on to number 8, discussion and possible action on approval of agreement among Nevada Power Company, NV Energy, Sierra Pacific Power Company, and Nevada Corporation, NVE, and the Carson City School District to construct and install 125 kilowatt solar photovoltaic energy system at Mark Twain Elementary School for possible action.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board and executive staff. Sorry about that lengthy executive summary there, but I think you got it.
Yeah, I got voltaic wrong. That's good.
I'm here to answer any questions for you tonight on the low-income solar energy pilot program, partnership between us and NV Energy at Mark Twain Elementary School, and to get your signature on the agreement to go forward with this. If you may recall, August 26th, I was here talking to you guys about this program, and I presented a timeline which brought us to about this point. We did have an action plan meeting, Mr. Stokes, Mr. Fueling, and myself, and some folks from NV Energy on July 21st, and put together kind of an action plan of where we were going with this. On the 15th of August, we submitted the agreement to Mr. Pavlakis' office, and on the 10th of September, we did a job walk, a site walk with NV Energy to look at possible locations on the site. So we identified about 3 locations. Since that time, we've been negotiating the agreement, and it's really quite simple, and it's before you. And we're to the point where the agreement's ready to go, and we could then develop the scope and an RFP for a design-build team project. And after that, once we got some drawings, we could, the city had told me once they see our drawings, they'll determine whether we need to do a special use permit on this. And regardless, we plan on doing a neighborhood meeting to let folks know what's going on out there anyway. I would say at this point we're about a month behind on this timeline, and it would look like project completion closer to February 1st.
Any questions? Steve?
Mr. Koronek, remind me again, where does the funding come from for these projects?
The funding for this came through a bill, AB 428, and the PUC directed NV Energy to put a program together, and they put this into their annual plan, and then the PUC approved their annual plan. So I assume it comes from NV Energy, which probably comes for all of us.
Laurel?
I do have just a couple notes that I found on reading through the agreement. Under paragraph 1, the very last sentence under agreement, on page 1, the district will cooperate with the construction, including but not limited to providing equipment, storage of equipment. Maybe we should just say equipment once in there, storage of equipment, or do we need to specify it twice?
Storage of equipment, equipment storage.
Of equipment.
Of equipment identified.
You think it's okay with it?
We could do that.
And then my other question, I read it all. On paragraph 7 on page 2, the district shall allocate or designate the bill savings experienced by the school will benefit the students attending the school. Should that say that they will allocate or designate the bill savings experienced by the school to benefit the students attending that school?
Or designate how?
Or
Designate how.
shall allocate or designate how the bill savings experience?
Will benefit the student. You're right, it needs to be.
Just the will, and I think the school should be capitalized too, because we're talking about that specific school. So that sentence had some questions for me. I was changing it to the bill savings experienced by the school to benefit the students attending that school, but instead of will,
Okay.
but.
We'll run that by Mr. Pavlakis.
And one last one, sorry. Paragraph 9 on page 3, each party's liability to the other party for any loss, cost, claim, injury, liability, expense, or including reasonable attorney's fees and relating to me, when I read it, I didn't know if I wanted the or and the and there. It seems like you could just list it, because I don't want to say or, I want attorney's fees included in with any potential loss. Maybe. Yeah, and even and. I thought you could get rid of both of them.
Okay.
Candace?
Just generally, and maybe because you've been through this, with some of the other photovoltaic systems, how would you define benefit? Because it's very clear that you have to give a report back to Nevada Energy on how the savings are benefiting the students. So is there an idea of how you're defining benefit and what some examples would be?
What some of the examples would be, yes. One is we're having a dashboard installed with the system, so we could use that as an educational piece for the students. And really, the money could be used for various things, which we discussed to length. So we have not decided or met with, and I should have told you that in the timeline. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be meeting with the administrator there, Mr. Fueling and myself, to talk about how we could use some of those. As you saw, there was a piece to keep some of that for maintenance of the system, but the majority of the money will go back to supplies and needed services in the school.
That was my quick question with that. The money, would it be limited to capital, or could it go to services as well? If there's money.
It could go to services as well. Yeah, and I'm not even sure I see much capital there with it. It could be just supplies. Right, okay.
And maybe just copy the board on that report so we could see what goes to NV Energy in that
Absolutely.
report too. That would be good. And then if you'll let me know when that meeting is, because I'm in that neighborhood. Mr. Storzik.
Mark, just have one question that you can maybe clarify, and that's number 8 on page 3. It says Nevada Energy shall own and possess for its use all portfolio energy credits or other renewable energy or green attributes produced by the generation of the system or any that results from the generation of the system. What are we talking about?
It's pretty complicated. There's portfolio energy credits is actually a way that they can, at some point, someday, we assume that there'll be a market for portfolio energy credits. It's not here. They are doing some trading in California now. I believe they do trading in Europe with them. But there isn't anything for us in Nevada right now as far as that goes. And the other thing is they're not going to give us a rebate for those credits because they're paying for the system.
Well, what is a portfolio energy credit or other? What would be examples of other renewable energy or green attributes produced by the generation? What are we talking about?
I would say another example would be a carbon credit, which is also similar to that and is also traded on certain markets.
So I believe, if I remember from Mr. Hargrove, NV Energy, there are standards set going forward in the future about how much of the energy that they are generating for all of us comes from renewable sources. And so there's an expectation of them meeting a certain amount by certain years going forward in the future. And so by doing this with us, they get to claim that as something that they're getting renewable energy. Because we're receiving it, essentially it's helping them out because they can claim that they're getting more from renewable sources.
I believe by 2018, there's supposed to be 20% renewable energy. So the credits help them get to that.
Well, we are very appreciative of Nevada Energy picking us as one of the 8 in the state. So any other questions for Mr. Cornick? Seeing none, this is an action item.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the agreement among Nevada Power Company doing business as Nevada Energy, Sierra Pacific Power Company, and Nevada Corporation, NVE, and the Carson City School District to construct and install a 125 kilowatt solar photovoltaic energy system at Mark Twain Elementary School.
Second by Ron. Any board discussion? Any public comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Cornick.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 9, selection of Family Life Committee members for the following categories, 1 counselor and 1 teacher for possible action. Mrs. Story, you're back up.
For the record, my name is Sheila Story. I'm the school nurse at Carson High and the chief nurse for the district. Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. Erin Bean, as she's busy this evening with volleyball, asked me to present to you the replacement of Family Life Committee member, counselor, and teacher categories. The Family Life Committee member, Bonnie Preston, who's a teacher, and Ann Felty, counselor, representatives have submitted their letters of resignation. These positions have been advertised, and we have 2 applicants, Amanda Chambers and Valentino Midbo. Both have expressed an interest in serving on the committee as the counselor and teacher representatives respectively. These candidates have been asked to attend the board meeting to answer any questions, but unfortunately, neither of them were able to attend this evening. The Family Life Advisory Committee interview process are included in your board packets as a resource for the selection process. Any questions?
Ron?
Yes. What is the purpose of the Family Life Committee?
The Family Life Committee is a committee made up of several different individuals. There's teachers, there's counselors, there's parents, there's students, there's someone from a religious affiliation, and also some from the medical area where I'm a member for being the chief nurse for the school district. And basically, we review all material that is going to be presented within a classroom that has to do with growth and development. So if you wanted to teach about the growth and development starting in 4th and 5th grade, and you wanted to present the different aspects, the gender differences, that type of thing, we then have to approve of anything that's going to be presented in the classroom along with middle school and high school. Yes.
Sheila, I can't find the interview process. All we have are just the letter of intent and then the letter of resignation, but there isn't anything else. Usually there's like a CV or a resume or something attached. So I guess I'm just hoping that if the process is that you guys interview these applicants and you feel comfortable with them, I feel that's good enough, but we don't have any information.
Okay. I apologize for that. Aaron Beam probably has that information. But what happened is at our last Family Life Committee meeting, both these individuals attended. And then we, as the board members, asked them, questions about themselves. And they also introduced themselves and gave us a background regarding their counseling and their teaching experience and what interests them in, being on the Family Life Committee. And then from there, we discussed it, and then we brought it forward to you.
Any other questions? Okay. This is going to be a hotbed in the legislature this year, so we're hoping great things from this committee. So let us know if there's anything we need to do to keep our program in Carson City.
We will keep you appraised of any legislative action.
Okay, please do. Any other questions? Seeing none, this is an action item 2.
Move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the selection of Amanda Chambers as the counselor representative to serve on the Family Life Committee for the remainder of a 3-year term, October 1, 2014 to August 31, 2017, and Valentine of Midbow as a teacher representative to serve on the Family Life Committee for the remainder of a 3-year term, October 1, 2014 to August 31, 2016.
Second by Laurel. Any board discussion? Any public comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mrs. Story, and tell them we hope for great things from them. Moving on to number 10, informational update on the district's performance plan parent survey for discussion only. Mrs. Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. Any state and federal improvement program or process requires stakeholder feedback. In your board packet, you have 2 parent surveys. One set is for the elementary parents, and the second set is for the middle school and high school parents. The elementary survey questions are tied to the strategic plan. The high school survey includes questions that are required for the accreditation process. Advanced Ed, the accrediting agency, writes or authors the questions, and we have cut and paste them into the survey, and they are designated by the numbers and the color green in your parent survey that you have before you. In addition to both, both the middle school and the high school survey have the balance of their questions tied to the Race to the Top grant and the strategic plan. The parents of the elementary elementary students will take the survey probably towards the spring around the March parent conference time. That is yet to be decided with the principals and myself. And then the middle school and high school parents will be taking the survey during their student-led conference time, especially for the 9th graders in the middle school. Each of the surveys will be translated in Spanish once they're finalized so that we make sure that we reach all of our parents. And the purpose tonight is to solicit feedback before we finalize the survey. So do you have any questions about the survey?
Steve?
Excuse me.
Mrs. Kima, as I was reading through this, something that struck me was I wondered if you're a parent and you're not significantly involved in the school, do you really have answers to many of these questions? I mean, just as an example, in our school, my child has at least one adult advocate in the school. And there's several others. I'm just bringing it up, and what was crossing my mind is, how am I as a parent, how do I know the answer to that? How can I, And there's others in there I wonder the same thing about. And I understand our desire and need and requirement to issue the questionnaire, so I guess I'm just curious how this is going to work when I see a lot of questions that as a parent, I mean, if I wasn't down there as much as Stacy, I don't know that I'd have the answers to these questions.
Okay.
Laurel?
My thought, too, when I looked at the secondary school is there's 78 questions. If you're really looking for parent feedback, they're going to zone out after 20, and you're going to get 3s on everything. I think you need to limit the questions, and this is a draft. It is riddled with typos and non-punctuation. I know there's difficulty in wording some things because we're trying to keep it gender neutral when we're using our pronouns, but we've got to figure out how to word that appropriately. And then my other question I had with the specific questions, which I understand the green ones are required for accreditation, but our school's governing body operates responsibly and functions effectively. I consider myself rather engaged and educated in this, and I don't know, are you talking about the principal? Are you talking about the superintendent? Are you talking about the school board? What is the governing body you want them to respond to? So to me, there's quite a bit of redundancy in the questions, and I think it needs to be shrunk down significantly to get valid feedback.
Lynette?
Just the acronyms, FAS, FA, what is that? Some of them obviously I know because I hear them, but Accuplacer, SAT, SAT, ACT are pretty obvious, but I'd be careful with the acronyms.
Oh, you'll get to know FAFSA soon enough. Candace?
Just a few things that may make sense or may not. I think we need to understand who's answering the form in terms of relationship here. Is it a mother? Is it a father? Is it a grandparent? Is it a guardian? I think that's really important. I think also it's going to be important to understand how we're going to be able to reach out to the homeless students. I don't know if you've been able to think about that. I think as much as possible, just as Laura was saying, to try and reduce the number of questions on the secondary parent survey. If we can at least cut down on the non-accreditation and non-strategic plan, raise the top ton of questions, and maybe take the opportunity to have more open-ended questions, such as, did you move to Carson City or move to a specific neighborhood in Carson City so that your child could attend or enroll in a specific school? I think to try and get at that piece of, did the parents actually come to Carson City or move within Carson City because of a specific school, not just focusing on the sort of really detailed answers. I do second the issue about the governing body. That's not clear to me at all. The questions about purpose statement, there are questions on here about the purpose statement. List your purpose statement here. I tried to find the purpose statement for the middle schools and the high school. I found some mission and goals looking at the web pages. I didn't find anything on the Carson High. So maybe, that's because I'm looking at it just in terms of the web page. But I don't know if that information is out there, and I think it's also confusing. Is the purpose statement, is it the goal, is it the mission, is it the objectives? I think there's going to be some confusion in terms of people trying to answer on that. I think there needs to be an incentive. People are going to zone out. I think there needs to be some kind of incentive for people to answer the surveys, whether it's a gift certificate to Smith's or Save Mart. But I'm sure we can find some money to have some incentive for people to respond to the survey. And I think those open-ended questions at the end are extremely important. One other thought is perhaps to ask the parents or the guardians or the grandparents, real simple question: would you recommend your school to other parents? Why or why not? And that's it. But I know there's a lot of ground you have to cover, but I think as much as possible, if there's a way to cut down on the non-required ones as possible and to increase the response rate would be worthwhile.
Okay. Something just to add is that generally when we would have a survey such as this, we try to have them at the school events that bring the families in, so we can reach those students and families that might not have internet access at home, which is why it's always good to put it close to a parent conference, because they're coming in and while they're waiting for their turn, they can quickly answer the survey. Not the high school.
Yeah. Steve?
Is the purpose of the survey to understand what our parents are thinking of the school and what's going on as opposed to knowing trying to get an understanding of what's going on at the school. Am I phrasing that question correctly?
Yes. Let me paraphrase to make sure that you're asking if the intent is for us to find out if the parents know what's going on at the school versus what their opinion is about the school. Is that correct, or am I taking that in wrong?
I think you're going to find out what their opinion is, but I guess what I'm reaching for, and I won't pose it as a question, but just as with this questionnaire, what you're going to find out is what your audience, the parents in this case, or our guardians, may think about what's going on at the school. It's not going to be what is going on at the school. If you wanted to get an in-depth understanding, and I may be preaching to the choir or telling you things you already know, we would find out more from doing a random interview with 100 parents that we invited in and actually took time with those 100 parents than we're going to get from a blanket survey from all of our parents. Now, I don't know what's allowed or not allowed, but you'd have to kind of walk. If you wanted the answers to these questions, you're going to have to walk the person through in an interview process. You're not going to be able to get these from the average parent and have it mean anything. The terminology and what we want to find out about just doesn't relate to the average parent. And I'm not saying, I guess it's a question, and then it comes down to a question, are we doing the surveys because we're required to do the surveys? Or is there really information out there that we want to find out? So that's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Laurel?
And I forgot one other thing. I noticed on both of the the elementary, that there's questions regarding the school start time. And my thought would be that those questions would be good to have the school schedule committee look over and come up with what they're interested in finding out on that. But just for instance, number 77 on the secondary, the high school one, my child's school start time at school works best for the student and the family. That to me is a biased question because it's already assuming everything is best. And then my other concerns with it, if I could choose the start time, we've got 7, 7:15, 7:30, 7:45. I don't think there's any movement to start school any earlier, or there's any research that indicates starting school earlier would be beneficial. So I'm not sure that we want to give parents the options of the times if they're not things that we're even going to consider, and perhaps that would be something if the school scheduling committee comes up with some suggested times, then you could present that through that committee rather than, if you see this and a parent picks 9:45 and that's not really practical, what good does that serve? So I would limit the times to what ones are actually being considered.
Okay.
Anyone else? Any other comments? Mr. Stokes? No comment?
Madam President, when you and I met this morning, I had erroneously said to you that this had already gone out. I learned later in the day that it has not. And so we erred on the side that this body needed to see those questions prior to them going out.
And the goal of those questions for the accreditation process for the high school is so that they can build based on their community, family, parents' feedback. They can build programming to meet the needs of those families so that they do understand what's all involved in the school regarding ACT, FAFSA, those kinds of things. With the elementary, I always think of Title I. I think of our improvement, district improvement plan, our strategic plan. We're looking at the schools are expected to have a family engagement goal. And based on that information that they get from their families, they can set up their programs to meet the needs of the family so that they do understand the educational system. So working with Mrs. Dockery and working with the Title I, we try to set up the elementary that way. So we'll relook at those questions, continue our quest for feedback. This is draft form. I appreciate your comments.
I appreciate it too. I think one of the things that I was told too is it's long, so it could be one survey instead of having 3 surveys that are 25 questions too. So you had to look if you can get everybody at 1 or if you can get more input by doing 3. So that's the other thing that you were juggling too. So we appreciate it. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to number 11, discussion and possible action on the process to be used to complete the superintendent's evaluation for the 2014 calendar year for possible action. So in your packets, you guys all got the forms we had last time. Is there any changes that you want to make? Steve?
I'll just make a short note. We were doing this for basically the first time last year, and we kind of got into a little bit of a complexity when we were adding things up. And the process that we really should use with this is, as a group, we determine what each score is here, and then we're just adding those scores up to get to the total rating. Where last year, if you remember, we were adding each of our individual scores up to try and get somewhere, and that's really not the process that we should use or that I suggest we use this year.
It's not an individual evaluation.
So, yeah, so everybody will do their own individual ones, then we'll discuss each one, the
Right.
leadership and district culture, and then decide if it's going to be a 4, 3, or 2 as a board aspect.
Yeah, because that more than just bringing up a number, that discussion of here's what I've seen or haven't seen or whatever is very important to the evaluation.
We don't want it to just be a throwing numbers out.
Right. Any other comments, changes? We're going to do this on the November 25th meeting. So you guys have been so good at homework today. I'm sure this is not going to be a problem. Everybody should have theirs already filled out with your comments and your whatever you want to bring up during public meeting so that you'll be ready to vote on the 25th. As long as nobody has any changes, we're going to have a motion so that this is what we decide on. But if there are no other changes and everybody's okay with the way we're going to work it.
Let me bring up one other thing. I think since he's got plenty of time now that he's completed his trip to Idaho or whatever,
He's rejuvenated.
maybe we should ask Mr. Stokes if he has any suggestions. But the other thing, you've usually been kind enough to provide kind of a state of the district memorandum to us or something that I think would have influence over this. So perhaps we could get that in the not too distant future.
Yeah, if you could get, because you always have the goals for 2014, so if you can have that with what you think you've accomplished, I think that would be helpful before the 25th. Candace?
I forgot to mention one basic thing. We have 10 factors now, so the scoring is going to have to be different. It's going to have to go up to 40.
Okay. I'll recount the scoring.
Yes, we have. So I don't know if you
I'll
want
work
to-
with Renee to change that.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Any other discussion, changes, way we should do it? This is an action item.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the evaluation form as submitted for completing the superintendent's annual evaluation for the 2014 calendar year.
Second.
Second by Steve. Any more board discussion? Mr. Stokes, do you have any input? Okay, good. Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in
Stacy?
favor? Oh, sorry, Mr. Papp.
There is the amendment that Steve proposed, that the compilation would be the subject of discussion and finalization by trustee Reynolds.
Go ahead and amend the
Do you want me to
motion.
mention the scoring as well?
That's what he wants you to mention, and you don't need to restate that.
Do you want me to say the amendment?
Yeah.
Also amending the motion that the, go ahead.
We will be changed the scoring to accommodate 10 items instead of the 9 that we had previously. And I also amend my second.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlakis. Seeing no more public comment, all those in favor?
Aye.
All righty, be ready on the 25th. All right, moving on to number 12, informational update on the CCSD Foundation, including possible action for the resignation of the Board of Trustees as directors of the CCSD Foundation. For possible action, Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This is another installment, I guess, of information and discussion, and in this case, possible action as we take consecutive steps towards putting our Carson City School District Foundation into play. Had an opportunity to discuss at length some of the concepts surrounding this process with Mr. Pavlakis this past week, and in an effort to essentially get our foundation moving and not really existing simply on paper, we've got a couple of ideas. I have some ideas that I'd like to present to you this evening. And in moving forward, if we are to create an organization that is intended to support the efforts of this board in not only raising funds but also providing opportunities to support initiatives by the board, then we're looking to create a separate entity that is directed by a separate body other than this body, and to really fulfill and to work within the conditions of the open meeting law, as in other organizations that we currently have in place in the school district that are not under the exact purview of the board but are working in conjunction with the superintendent. It's that type of thinking that I'm placing forward before the board for your information and understanding. So at our last meeting, I suggested that this board would actually approve the folks that were here the night when I introduced the prospective directors for our foundation. And in talking with Mr. Pavlakis about this, one of the tricky parts in this formation would be that if that were to occur, then that board or the foundation would be subject to the rules and obligations of the open meeting law. And while we're not trying to circumvent any of those, there's some measure of flexibility that we have if that group functions as a committee of the superintendent as opposed to a committee of this board. And so in addition to, well, before we can do that, because you folks already exist as the directors of the foundation, you would need to resign your positions as directors in order for us to then submit in the articles of incorporation of the foundation the list of new directors. I'm also proposing that the superintendent or his or her designee also have the ability to sit on that foundation as a director and have a vote, as well as a member from this board who the superintendent would invite to be part of that board as well. That way, when we have at our regularly scheduled meetings, there would be an opportunity for the board member, the trustee who sat as a director on the foundation, to report on activities of the foundation at this meeting. So I think it creates a nice method for a member of the trustees to be a part of that process, because I know there has been some discussion about, well, what happens if the foundation goes this way and the board's going this way? You know, how can we do our best to safeguard the fact that this group is really intended to support the efforts of the board and not really to be its own entity or agency. I'm hoping that you're following what I'm trying to say here, but really trying to create a superintendent's committee that would operate as Carson City School District's foundation, with the strategic plan being our roadmap to guide activities, and, oh dear, sorry about that, or to have us be able to continue on and really use the foundation to support the work of the school board.
Any questions, Candace?
I guess my preference would be to be as transparent with this as possible, especially when you're dealing with an organization that's going to be receiving money on behalf of the school district. So if my preference would be full open meeting law, and for the board to decide who should be appointed, so that it is a full-fledged school board appointed committee. It scares me. I mean, this is not just an advisory committee that is talking about issues. This is a committee that's raising money, and my preference would be to have it totally under the open meeting law, and not try to. I don't think it's worth the flexibility. I think that can get us into more trouble if we try and avoid that.
Steve?
I appreciate your concern. However, I think we're modeling this after many other foundations, and there is a realistic reason to approach it in this manner, and that's the fact that many people who contribute to foundations like this, and much of the business of the foundation, while is not necessarily something that would want to be conducted in the same transparency that we conduct a school board meeting. The foundations tend to, at certain times, need to pursue things in a fundraising, in a fundraising approach that aren't that wouldn't be pursued in the same ways that a school board would. Now, one of the things that I was going to ask, and I think it probably is true, we're not reinventing any wheels here. There are plenty of foundations out there supporting education, school districts and educational organizations, and I assume we're modeling ours after the others out there. I personally believe that there are some freedoms that, it's not that we're operating in secrecy in any way, but you're doing business with organizations and businesses that may want to make contributions or do things that aren't necessarily publicized in the same way that we publicize everything in a school board meeting. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of what I see in this.
Laurel?
Well, and I guess, because I did bring up some of the concerns at the last meeting, but it is a separate entity. It's a 501c3 corporation, so it would be a separate entity. As a separate entity, could it also function as a committee, or would that then? I haven't researched this, but I'm just thinking of piercing the corporate veil, because they're so intermingled that if it's the superintendent's committee and the board members are on there, are we to? I don't know. Maybe I'm just throwing out things that are back in the back of my head. I'm not sure. I did speak with Charlotte Hales, who's on the board in Douglas County, and asked her how theirs is set up, and she said theirs is a separate entity, and it's completely separate. And she said, that those are concerns. What if it takes a different direction? But the purposes of the corporation are outlined in its bylaws. Now, of course, new directors could change bylaws if that was the case. So I don't know. I don't know. And then I guess my other question with it is, if we resign as the directors of the foundation, how does the foundation exist before the new directors are appointed?
Mr. Pavlakis?
We, assuming that the board is willing to resign as members of the board of directors, we would prepare an amendment to the articles of incorporation that would address some of the concerns as best we can. Specifically, if this board were to resign, what we would envision is that the composition of the new board would be set forth in an amendment to the Articles of Incorporation. We would specifically state that the composition of the board would consist of at least one representative from this board, along with the superintendent of Carson City School District or his designee. In order to try to address the control issue, we could impose in the articles a supermajority requirement on any amendment to the articles. I don't know that we could go so far as to say that the approval of this board would be required to approve any amendments. I'll research that for sure. In terms of constituting this as a superintendent's committee, I think you're right, Trustee Crossman, that although Mr. Stokes and Ms. Dockery have recruited and selected the members of the first governing board, it's probably going to have to be that the members of the board itself would select their successors. I'll research the issue of whether or not we can impose a requirement that those successors meet the approval of the superintendent of schools. But I don't want to promise that at this point. I'm hoping, does that
answer the question?
Yeah, and I'm not sure that my question was specifically posed. It was just kind of out there. But no, I think that answers it. It just, I don't know some of this either, so.
Ron?
Well, Mike, is this, like Steve said, is this kind of like in line with other school district foundations? What's being proposed by the superintendent?
Yes. The discussion I had with Trustee Crossman prior to the meeting was it's a little bit like letting your child grow and leave the nest to a certain extent. Mr. Stokes is volunteering to be a voting member of that board. He's proposing that one of the members of this board, by virtue of your office, also be a member. I would anticipate that member of this board would have a regular report on the agenda so that this board and the public could be aware of what the foundation is doing. In the event that there was some kind of a divergence of what this board thought the foundation should be doing as opposed to what they are doing, you could put an agenda item for your consideration. You could give direction to Mr. Stokes and your voting member about what your thoughts are. Hopefully the purposes don't get crossed, but occasionally people do have different opinions. And so usually the best way to help that out is to set the ground rules as best you can and to provide for regular communication between both of the bodies.
And Candace, just to answer yours, even though it's a committee by the superintendent, it still has minutes taken, right? We still have minutes taken, because we usually do at the wellness ones and stuff. So if there is that would be part of the transparency. If somebody wanted to see the minutes of the meeting, they would be available to people. By making it this way, the biggest option I see is that we don't have to post it. Even though, and Steve, your points were good too, but we don't have to post the meeting and get that 3-day regular cycle thing going. So. And my big concern is this board works really well together, but I've been on this board when it doesn't work real well together, when the superintendent is going one direction and 4 board members are going another direction and 3 board members. So that was what I was a little nervous about, but as Mr. Pavlakis reminded me, sometimes we just have to let go and hope that we have the right people in place and to do what we need to get done.
I also wonder if there aren't one of the things I think that we can't be seen as is doing anything that overly directs the funds and their use. If I have read my information well, that kind of needs to be, we can accept that the funds are used within the school district, but we can't, it's not our budget. Funny things happen when money's given to us as part of our budget.
Mr. Pavlakis.
You can certainly establish a wish list, and I think that the spokesman for the group at the last meeting indicated that as of now, the guide is going to be the strategic plan and the elements that you've identified there. You might choose to refine that as your wish to the foundation that you would like to see them establish a particular program or item for identification for funding. I think that's entirely appropriate.
Mr. Pavlakis, one of the things I think perhaps needs to be in there, and maybe it is going to be one of the clauses, but, if things would ever come to it, there probably needs to be something that says at any given time or by going through a certain process, the school board can cause the foundation to dissolve. Is that something that won't play legally?
No, the governing documents even right now provide that if and in the event that the foundation is dissolved, that all of its assets go to the school district.
I understand. What I'm saying is, would we want to have a clause in the agreement that says if something did occur, let's say something occurred in the foundation's actions that made it untenable, the school board felt it was untenable, could we decide that we no longer wanted to have the foundation?
You could decide that. You could decide that you would withdraw your support and that the representative of the Board of Trustees would no longer participate, that the superintendent would no longer be allowed to participate, and then the foundation would have to decide what it was going to do in light of that. And, all right.
I understand.
Candace?
It's its own entity. It would operate however it chose to operate in that regard, and I understand how that would have to be. Thank you.
Well, before the entity goes on its way, is there any chance we could at least look at the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws? They don't have any bylaws yet, do they? I think at least, I think that would be helpful for the board to review that if we could. That would be my recommendation.
I could imagine somebody coming in here and saying, I was going to give $150,000 to the foundation, but I want you to change your legal counsel or something like that,
Or your superintendent.
We might, yeah. Happens at colleges all the time.
Any other comment or discussion? So do you still want a motion then, or do you have to wait to get something written up?
I would, by the way, I appreciate the feedback, and certainly I want to be right there lockstep to carry out the intentions of the board. I do know that right now our directors are taking their next steps, even though we've not fully organized ourselves, as it were, at least on paper. And we certainly want to make sure that we're, like I say, doing what you are expecting us to do, so we can bring that information back to you, and we can meet again to make sure that we're trying to do our very best within this situation.
Do we need a motion? Mr. Pavlakis?
The direction that I'm hearing is exactly what Trustee Stovall indicated, is that before you take any action, you would like to see drafts of the governing documents, the revisions. And so if you want to make that a formal motion, you can, but I think we've got our orders even without that.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to make a motion, though, regarding this. Can I do that?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that Carson City, that the School District Board of Trustees commends the superintendent and the other individuals who have worked hard to put the foundation together to this point. We applaud their actions and look forward to the foundation coming to fruition.
It's a comment.
Well, I think as a board that we should, I think that as a board that we should make a motion that we as a board that we commend them, because I do think, and let me explain this, I do think it's important that, given our discussion, I do think it's important that we tell these folks that are excited that we're supporting their excitement. We're not trying to throw rocks in the trail, so to speak.
Second.
Second by Ron. Thank you for that, Steve. Any public discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
See none. Go on to number 13 then. Presentation and discussion to eliminate the following CCSD policy. First reading, policy 533, safety patrol, for discussion only. Mrs. Kima.
Susan Kima for the record. Simply put, the Carson City School District doesn't have a safety patrol as described in policy 533. I checked with Mr. Orlando Sanchez, our safety security officer, and he said that in the past, a teacher was assigned at each school in the elementary to head up the safety patrol, and that they would train primarily fifth grade students to supervise the crosswalks around the school grounds. Since then, since the early 90s, we have moved to a crossing guard model, and where adults are employed part-time by the school district and trained by the district to ensure the safety of our crosswalks surrounding our schools. So therefore, this is the first reading to request that we remove this policy because it's no longer applicable. At this time, we entertain questions.
Any questions?
And well, just safety patrol makes me think of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books and movies. But that was my question. We still will maintain our crossing guards. And that was one thing I really appreciate about our district, that we do pay and train our crossing guards so that we're not relying on volunteers. I think it really improves the safety of our students.
Okay.
Lynette?
I just wanted to second that. I was just thinking of my fifth grader being a crossing guard. Absolute nightmare. So I really appreciate it. And I know at Borderwick, they take their job very seriously. And kids are walked across, and it's nice and safe. So, yeah, glad we're getting rid of this.
Okay.
I don't know. I was part of Safety Patrol at Gleason. Thank you very much.
Did you get to wear a sock?
I did. Anyway, any other discussion on the motion? Or on the discussion? Any public comment? Thank you, Sue. We'll see you on the 25th. Moving on to number 14, approval of consent agenda for possible action.
I move that the Carson City School Board of Trustees approve consent agenda items A, B, D, I, J, K, and L as submitted.
Second.
Second by Laurel. Any board discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to number 15, requests for future agenda topics. Ms. Laurel.
I don't know if it's an agenda, but I just noticed it. I thought when I went to the Carson City Schools website, because I was doing it on my mobile device, I couldn't see it, but I've been doing it on the computer. I can't find a link to our schools. I can't see it, because I was like,
On your mobile device, not the very.
okay, because I went and I've done it multiple times, and I've gone through each of the, home, parents, students, that, and I want to be able to go to each school's site, which I said I thought was there. I can't find it. So so I can go back and look again and see if it's somewhere else, but
Usually just do.
I don't know. I just thought that might be something good to have more prominently there, because if I can't find it, maybe somebody else can't.
Trustee Crossman, we could, as part of my report, we could actually just pull up the webpage and show you and members of the community where that is. That would be really easy to do. And in the meantime, it's just on
Good at finding Power School, but
on the left-hand page at the top, you can see it, but we can do that.
Candace?
Just, I don't know if November, the meeting in November, but if there's any movement in terms of legislation and bill drafts, would really appreciate any information, updates on that would be great.
I think we'll probably put that in the 1st of December meeting. The 25th is getting kind of packed because it's the only meeting in November.
And I can add to that, Madam President, I did talk with Mary Brzezinski today, and she said that she has a number of those, and while those bill draft requests are still coming in, she is responding to my request, and it looks like that we should be able to make some sort of report to the board probably in that first meeting in December.
We need several more legislative committees. We can do that, I hope.
I did find it. It's really tiny.
I told you it's this big.
Maybe it should be bigger.
Any other items? See none. You have a whole month off. Enjoy it. Put it to good use. Be back with your evaluations. This meeting is adjourned.
All right, thank you.
And happy Nevada Day.
Yeah.
You guys could enjoy it.